You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
I'm Katrina, and I love anime.
I'm Steven, and I'm aware of anime.
But what if that affection could rub off?
Perhaps that excitement in her eyes got me curious.
I could offer up some solid anime.
I could give them a watch, just to see what all the fuss is about.
And maybe, just maybe,
I could learn to love anime too.
welcome to Inspired by a Weeaboo. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Inspired by a Weeaboo. I am your host Katrina, and with me is my husband Steven.
Hello.
We just finished episode 37 of Fullmetal Alchemist. Steven, what did you think?
This is a very interesting episode where they... I know this is I don't know if we've ever talked about this on this show before, but I know that we've had this conversation here recently. I do appreciate sometimes when an episode does something out of the ordinary, just to kind of play around with it. And that's what this episode definitely did.
Mm-hmm.
I know that recently we were watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and you
just
balked at the idea of a musical episode, which, again, I can understand. It's not for everybody, but I appreciated what they were doing. They had logical reasons. It wasn't just like everyone broke out into song. There was a reason, and I think it worked. That is logical. So
now, just clarify, I don't hate musicals. There are several musicals that I really enjoy, but I like musicals that are, beginning to end musicals.
Right.
But when it comes to just having a episode of a show that has musical aspects to it, like Supernatural had a musical episode, I don't care for it.
That's fine. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything like you have to like musicals or take it. And, sometimes it doesn't work. That episode, I'm sure there were tons of people who didn't like it. I was one of the ones that probably did, because I was just like, this is fun. It's
Best
just fun.
part was Spock singing.
Yeah. Spock sang. Anyway, we're not talking about that. So what they did with this episode is they kind of gave us a glimpse into the lives of the military, like Mustang and his crew. And just two little bits that, I don't know, really didn't serve any purpose other than just kind of getting to know the characters a little bit better. And I just thought it was kind of fun. It's nothing more than filler, but it's fun filler.
Yes.
And there are those out there that those are the ones I appreciate. If you're going to do filler, make it good. Find a way to just make it as fun and just absolutely crazy as you can, or just do something that you normally wouldn't get a chance to do. Just have fun with it.
Yeah.
Don't just be like, well, here we are doing this thing again. Oh, God, I can't believe we got to do this. So this was a fun filler episode where, like I said, we got to see into the lives of the military, while a few things were kind of getting set up in the background as well. So it wasn't like complete filler, but it was actually two stories. And I thought that was kind of interesting, because they even presented them as two separate stories, even though they are kind of all linked together, but we got two title cards for it. So I thought that was kind of neat. So it's almost like vignettes, but only two of them. But the first one was focused on Havoc, who was just apparently going through a bout of depression because he couldn't keep a girlfriend. And all the other guys were just talking, saying, discussing it, and they were deciding, well, maybe, we could find him a girl, set him up with a date or something like that. And no one really has any kind of ideas. They're just like, well, maybe this, maybe that. And, something that wouldn't interfere with his duties in the military. And amid a conversation, Armstrong shows up out of nowhere. And he's just like, I got somebody. And we find out that he has a sister, which have they established that before?
Yes. He has stated that he has siblings. And this is the first one that we've got to see, but we will get to see the other one.
Gotcha. And so the idea was that they're going to set him up on a date with Armstrong's sister.
Yes, his little sister.
His little sister. Meanwhile, and this is the kind of thread that was following through both stories that was kind of progressing the plot a little bit and had to do with Lieutenant Colonel Archer. And he's trying to look through some files regarding Laboratory 5 and the prison. And he's gathering up information on like a few of the people who were involved. And he's also been trying to find a lead, or finds a lead, on the death of Hughes. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to figure out, or just basic little discussions. I mean, I don't really feel like there was anything super important in this discussion, just kind of pushing the plot forward a little bit in that aspect. And eventually we kind of go back to Armstrong and mm-hmm. Havoc, and Havoc shows up to the Armstrong mansion, and he's nervous, obviously. Mm-hmm. And it's a huge mansion, just like elegant, and just like the wealthiest person in the world could live there. And he's just, that's intimidating already. And the guys are just with him being like, hey, it'll be fine. Think about it. I mean, you can get in with, you're set for life. You can marry her. And he's like, well, I don't know. And he's just not, he kind of contemplating it for a moment. And then he thinks about what Armstrong's sister may look like.
Yeah, because Armstrong states that his sister looks just like him. Mm-hmm.
Which immediately puts that vision in your head, which he has. And that's what you would think, which is Armstrong, but with long, flowing blonde hair.
And in a dress.
And in a dress. And that's it. That is what he envisions this woman is going to look like. So immediately he goes into panic mode, thinking, God, no, please no. Tries to get back in the car. They're trying to push him back. And Armstrong eventually shows up and grabs him and just hugging him. He's like, oh, I can't believe you're here. I'm just so excited. And takes him inside, and they kind of show off the extravagant mansion, mm-hmm. introduces his father, which is a guy that looks like Armstrong, but with a big old beard, and he's wider.
He's wide and short.
Yeah, wide and short. So like big guy, but not like muscular big like Armstrong. He may have been at one point. And
he looks like what's his face from The Wizard of Oz, the second one, Return to Oz. The little robotic
TikTok.
Yeah, he looks like TikTok.
Yeah. So he's kind of listening to this guy prattle on about the legacy of the Armstrong family. He looks bored to tears. And then the mother shows up, and she is a beautiful woman, mm-hmm. but very tall.
Very tall. She's a fucking Amazonian.
And that again puts him into panic mode, thinking about, oh my God, she's going to look just like I envisioned, because he has this other vision of Armstrong, or this sister of Armstrong, mm-hmm. prancing around in a field. And it's just ridiculous, but so hilarious. And then he starts,
forget his potato tomato.
he starts thinking logically about it. It's like, okay, so if she looks like that and the father looks like that, and they can produce him, then maybe he starts doing all this chemistry and biology in his head, just like, well, connect this and maybe it look like that. And you take a tomato and you have a tomato, and then you get what do you call it?
He said if you have a potato and you add a tomato, then it equals what was it? It
was like
Pomato or
Pomato, that's it.
Something like that.
Pomato.
And then he goes on, when the sister gets ready to enter, he's like, if it's a choice between a potato and a tomato, please let it be a tomato. And which is the mom.
Yeah. But she walks in, and she is just this dainty little blonde.
Yes, she's so adorable.
Mm-hmm, who looks, and that was another aspect we didn't even touch on, as well as why she has not been taken or anything like that. And Armstrong kind of described she's shy.
Mm-hmm.
So she kind of walks in a little meek, just like, oh, hello. And just, like you're kind of getting the shyness out of her. And he looks at her and he's like, oh. And then he starts thinking about, okay, this is good. This is good. And then he starts having conversation with her. He's like, what do you like to do? And she's like, I like playing piano. And he starts envisioning, oh, that's great. And then she talks about like lifting the piano over her head.
Yeah, no, she whole ass lifted the piano over her head.
So having that...
She said, I'm pretty good on the piano.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I'm also pretty good under the piano.
Right.
And just had the piano lifted over her fucking head.
So then this, again, puts this man in this frazzled state where he's like, okay, so wait a second. He said, if I can just look past the freakish strength and just focus on the good things like her body.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, come on. So he's just like, so I can make this work because it'll all be great. Because he finally convinces himself this is perfect, this is great, and he mans up and he's like, I would like to request your time or whatever to go out on a date. And she shuts him down so fast, saying that, well, he's just not what she is looking for because she wants someone that looks like her brother, just like ripped and just
that
strong.
He's nice, but he doesn't have the muscular body that she wants. And she says that she wants someone like her big brother.
Yeah. He's like, and you're just not that handsome. And oh my God, he just shattered, literally shattered into a million pieces. And
freaking Armstrong was just like, well, tough luck.
Yep,
she doesn't like you. Oh, well.
Too bad. So, and for the rest of the episode, the man was just a zombie. He was gone. So that was essentially the end of that story.
Yes.
And then there was another story that focused on, it was called The Mystery of Warehouse 13. Mm-hmm. And so there was this, these two of the guys are walking around late at night through
Fury and I don't remember the other one.
Falman.
Yeah.
And they're waltzing through this warehouse area, I guess, on the base. Mm-hmm. And they're talking about how, there's some strange noises. And then there's all these rumors about ghosts in this mysterious warehouse. And they start hearing things. And there's a light that's not working down farther into the warehouse district, and they're just like, oh man, I wonder why no one's fixed this. And suddenly they start hearing noises, and then they turn, and then they see the number 13 scrawled on the wall, and they freak out and think that ghosts are coming after them, and they freak out. Then the next morning, Hawkeye is you almost thought someone was getting lucky for a moment because she's just like, ooh, you just keep doing that. Ooh. And then you come to find out, apparently, Hawkeye's dog is just licking her foot and kind of getting into her dream. So she wakes up, does a little practice with her dog, I guess, to do, sit, shake, all that jazz. And then takes her dog to work. And then they go in, or she comes into work, and everyone's talking about the Warehouse 13 thing. Mustang is just not having it because he's like, ghosts are not real. This is ridiculous. What are you talking about? There's only 12 bases. It's all fairy tales, ghost stories. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense. So they are so convinced they saw what they saw that they convince Mustang to just come out with them one night. Mm-hmm. down that alleyway or whatever you'd call it, and just see it for yourself. And he finds it ridiculous, but he's like, all right, fine, whatever. If it'll shut it up, I'll do it. And so they go out to see about exposing the truth of the ghosts or what have you. But as they go out, so as they're walking, again, as I mentioned before, what was his name? Havoc is still devastated. The entire time he's walking with them, he just has this blank stare on his face, cigarette hanging out of his mouth, which is like, looks disheveled.
Yeah.
And he's just like, so as everyone else is reacting, he's just off in the background, as that zombie face. I mean, his face never changes. It's just like,
like I said, he's like comatose.
Yeah. Like she devastated him to the point of no return.
I mean, you think about it. He thinks he's hot shit.
Mm-hmm.
He was so torn up over the, thought, and he deserved it. He shouldn't have been shallow.
That's true. But I guess I forgot before they went on that, Mustang and Hawkeye were driving around. The Mustang makes a pit stop at Hughes's house and kind of just says hello, said he was in the neighborhood, just want to stop by. And he was invited in, but he chose not to go in because he looked up and saw Winry in the window and just was like, nope, don't want to deal with that pretty much. Because, boy, she gave him that look like I'd stomp your ass in if I could. But anyway, there was the other bit following up with the Fuhrer, Bradley. Archer's talking about him, or talking to him with a few of the records that they kind of discovered. There seems to be like a secret conspiracy within the military with all the events that have occurred. And he wants to kind of go do some investigations, looking for a little bit of approval from Bradley. But then Bradley also kind of mentions, Scar might be in this one area where there's an uprising going on. So if he would want to go out that way and kind of deal with that, he'd kind of want him to do that. And he agrees. But then we get back to Mustang and the gang, and they're waltzing down the alleyway. And, of course, all the guys are just like, I'm telling you, there's ghosts. And she's like, just please shut up. There's nothing here. They start counting all the warehouses, and you can see where they're all numbered. And then there's this big open area where it looks like there could have been a warehouse. But he's like, see, there's nothing there. It's just dirt. There's nothing. And then they look across the way, like kind of in front of them, and there's 3 other buildings labeled A, B, and C. And B is laid out in such a way where there's a line between, in the letter that could indicate, like if you saw it from a distance and you didn't know it was a B, you could possibly interpret it as 13.
Yeah.
So with that knowledge, Mustang's like, see, this is what you saw. You just freaked out over nothing. It's crazy. He shut it down. He's happy with it, and he's just like, see, I proved it. You just got into your own heads and you imagined it. But as they were getting ready to leave, he looked over into the dirt field where they said that 13 could potentially be, and he sees something, and then orders one of the guys to kind of dig. And when he does, he finds a bone. And he's like, oh, okay. So they start thinking that maybe someone has been burying a body and that there's a murder afoot, and it could be someone in the military, and they've got to figure this out because there's somebody who's sneaking onto the base, burying bodies, and this is a conspiracy on the highest level. We got to deal with this now. So the next day, they're out there with shovels, just digging the shit out of this area. It's like, we got to find everything. We got to find every bone we can. And we're going to assemble this. We're going to find out who this is. And the one dude, Havoc's still off in the background holding a shovel, but still comatose. But as they're digging, Hawkeye's dog shows up with a bone in its mouth, drops it in one of the holes and covers it up, and then walks back out. So just realizing they've wasted their time even more. Going like, God damn it. So they go back to the office, and then Hawkeye walks in, and he's just like, is everything all right? And they're just like, it's just like, I just don't want to talk about it. And then they hear the dog bark, and then they all give this death glare like, you son of a bitch. So the episode ends with Mustang getting a request from Fuhrer Bradley to accompany Archer and Armstrong on their mission to go after Scar, technically, but it's actually supposed to be suppressing an uprising in this area. So, yeah, that was a Like I said, it did progress the story. We got to points in there where things were happening, but everything else around it was a lot of fun. Just kind of a nice little one-off, a little comedy, more focused stories. And I feel so sorry for Havoc. I mean, my God, that was the biggest. Well, I don't even call it insulting, to say the least.
Yeah, but so was him saying that he has to get over her brutal strength.
Yeah,
then it's like, well, what are the good things? Her looks, and then it kind of shows her hair flowing and one of those little type thing. If you know anime, you know what I'm talking about. And then it's like her style, which style is just a fucking code word apparently for body, because all it did was showed her bent over and all fucking boobies.
She was stacked. Say that. But so, yeah, I mean, what he got by the end was kind of what he deserved for acting the way he did. Still brutal, but...
It was. But it wasn't like she was just like, ew, you're gross, you're ugly, anything like that. Like, it was so innocent. Yeah. And she was just like, she set a boundary. I like guys who are big and muscular. And it honestly probably has something to do with the fact that she's freakishly strong.
Could be.
She wants a man who can, match her freakishly strong nature.
Sure. And look, I mean, I'm not going to knock anybody. I mean, you like who you like,
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing to kind of add in and, also kind of take a jab at people who do look at looks and have it kind of backfire on them.
And it is still kind of devastating in his sense, because he was sweet on the flower shop girl. And then that's how the first episode kind of kicked off, was it appears that Mustang is dating the flower shop girl who Havoc was very sweet on. And now he's like, you stole my girl and I ain't got nobody. And then of course they tried to set him up and that shit fell through. So yeah, he's lost his lady and got turned down by a super hot, super rich girl.
Sure. And I kind of actually forgot there was kind of a little third story, I guess, at the very, very beginning before the titles rolled, which was them, because they changed that up too. I didn't even mention that. They changed the opening.
Yes.
Where it wasn't talking about Ed and Al, but it was a narration. I think it was Hawkeye. Was it Hawkeye talking? So she was narrating, kind of doing the same opening like you did in every other episode, but then talking about just focused on the military and Mustang and all them. So I thought that was kind of neat, but then everything else followed through as normal, but just the opening bit was changed. And then they talked about the group, the guys were talking about investigating Mustang. And it was just, again, part of the comedy of it is somebody had, or it was Havoc that was tasked.
Havoc was tasked to investigate or to report on Mustang's every move.
Yeah. And then he was like, well, you guys could help too if you want. And then they just go through various vignettes of them talking about the most mundane things that this man does throughout the day. Nothing of any importance. Just he's frustrated with having to fill out reports and he's washing a window and just all this stupid shit, just regular stuff. So
stuff that shows he should totally not be a fucking colonel.
Right. So I don't know. I mean, I forgot about that, but yeah, that kind of kicked off the episode and that was kind of interesting too.
Yeah, because that's how Havoc finds out that Mustang was with his girl, and that kind of sets up the whole thing with him trying to set him up with Armstrong's sister. Yeah. But I think one of my favorite parts from that episode is when they're doing that whole little conversation thing where it's like all of them reporting on Mustang. It's like, it almost comes off that they're talking to each other, but they're technically not, because they're writing it down in this book. So everything they're writing down and then their replies to each other are all written down in this book. So they're just having to read these fucking replies and the arguments that start in the middle. And I don't know, it just tickles me every time. Because you're just like, you're sitting there writing down, and then Havoc's like, stop talking about this. Why are you blah, 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 blah. And then everybody else is like, come on, guys, stop fighting. And it's all written in this one fucking book that Havoc ends up tearing up. Mm-hmm. So it's not like the Fuhrer ever got his fucking report on Mustang anyway.
No. So
it's a great episode. It's fun.
Yeah, it's a fun episode just to kind of lighten the mood for a minute, because I'm sure things are going to get dark.
Yeah.
Because they do. The show goes from light to dark, and I appreciate it. I really do. It
gives you a break.
Yeah, which, some shows don't do that for you. Like, I can't imagine a comedy filled episode of The Handmaid's Tale. You talk about a show that would just tear you down and just keep you down. It's a hard watch, man. But I mean, it's good, but it's just like, God damn, every episode
is so good, but it it makes me so mad.
Yeah, like you just get through it and you're just like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
It fills you with rage if you care.
It does.
But yeah, so something like that wouldn't work. No. So there's no way to lighten that mood. But here, they've ebb and flow. It's like you'll have your little comedy moments kind of give you some levity, and then you kind of come back into the deeper stuff.
Yeah.
So you can deal with it. And I appreciate that.
And I feel like it always works. Like, it works very well with all the characters within the Fullmetal Alchemist universe, because they can all be, like, even with Ed and Al, they can be super freaking serious. But then they can be super lighthearted and just, funny. And that's with every single one of them. Like, even the Fuhrer, as much like, everything that you know about him, looking back to, like, the earlier episodes, he had, like, his little funny kind of jokey moments and stuff like that. And he came off of such a sweet person. And then, of course, you find out the dark truth about him.
Sure. And it's a testament to a good writing on a show, I think, when you can find that balance and make sure that even when you do comedic episodes like that, like Mustang has never come off like a cartoon character like some of the others where they flail about and whatnot. And that would seem a little out of character, but he can have the lighter moments.
Oh, yeah.
And it works within the context of his character. They never take him to that cartoonish level.
Yeah.
But they can still play and work in some comedic elements that work for him. So the fact that they can maintain everybody and their tone and still use the comedic elements, I think that's, again, a testament of great writing.
And not just that, the way that they can flip it on its head and just literally in, like, one word. There's been so many conversations throughout the series where, it will be like lighthearted, everybody's laughing, everybody's having a good time, and then it's like a switch flips and everything gets super serious.
Yeah.
And I like when it can do stuff like that, because I feel like that's something that happens in the real world. You could be having a really good time and then something happen or something gets said and it changed the entire mood in literally a split second. And it makes it a lot more relatable.
Yeah.
And something else that we really didn't get to talk about with one of the last episodes was, like, the way that the Ishbalans were treated. Like, we talked about them being loaded on a train and all that kind of stuff. It obviously has a lot of parallels to the Jewish population, everything being loaded on trains during, the war and all of that kind of stuff, and Nazi Germany. But I feel like it also even parallels to a lot of the stuff, like, that people deal with today, especially any person of color and the shit that they have to deal with. The fact that they're prosecuted because of their skin. The Ishbalans are prosecuted not just because they have the darker skin, but the red eyes. Like, that is the one thing that they take away from them is you have red eyes. And it just sets people uneasy, which is obviously 100% wrong. And I just like how, even though it was made, back in 2003, it still parallels to a lot of the stuff today. And it's really sad especially when the boys were talking about the fact that they not only had to witness one war, but they've witnessed, more than one, and they're still having to witness it. They're still being put in camps and everything else, and they're not able to live the way that they want, which can also reflect on, Native Americans, the indigenous population. Like, I don't know, it has so much parallel to today, and I feel like it makes it even more beautiful in the sense of, not beautiful in the sense of that it's still happening, like that's really sad, but like it has a way where I guess it's explaining it or showing it in a different light, and most people, you would hope that people would see the similarities.
Yeah.
But I can honestly say when I first watched it, I never paid attention to the similarities. And especially with the whole Nazi Germany aspect of the show, never fucking hit me until I watched the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I was flabbergasted when I finally got to watch the movie and saw that parallel. And then it just made me go back and rethink of everything that I'd saw all the way up to that point, and all the little things completely parallel to World War II.
I can see that, yeah.
But I don't know. It's, like I've said before, it's one of my favorite animes.
But, I mean, we were even talking about that with going back to Strange New Worlds. I mean, that was something that I gave props to in some of the last few episodes we were watching, is there were episodes where they were doing what they've done this in Star Trek before, and those were really good episodes, and they even copied that on the Orville when they were doing episodes where they take a real life scenario, then work in characters that you know and you care about, and then you put them in that situation. So in a way, it's almost like to disarm your audience into possibly thinking about something through a different lens. Yeah. Because if these are characters that you care about, and say that you have a problem with, say, gay marriage, for example, but you love this character, and then you're seeing the prosecution that they're going through for some bullshit reason that is very similar to some bullshit reasons we have in the real world, there's that hope that people can see that and think about it through a different lens and say, well, I never thought about it like that. Because you're seeing, again, characters that you know and you love go through that. So now it puts you in that position. And that's, as I've said before, smart writing, when you can find a way and not make it blatant, not make it where you're forcing it as like, look at what we're doing. Here's forcing my ideas upon you. You're making people think about it. Not
make it so blatant that people turn away from it and refuse to listen, but making it to where people are going to listen to it and start to think about it in a different way. And it's really sad that it has, I mean, I'm sure it doesn't have to be done like this.
No, but it's smart.
But it is. It's really smart, but it's also really sad that that's what it takes for some people.
But if that's a way to do it, then so be it. At least that's true. That is an opportunity to change someone's mind where they wouldn't be listening at all. But, I mean, there are still those other people out there who would hear that and just be like, well, I ain't watching this woke shit no more. And then they're going to be done with it because they don't want to process that. And that's sad. But there's some people you can't change.
Yeah.
But for those who are a little bit more open-minded, you'd hope that things like this can help them see a side of it maybe that they hadn't thought about.
Yeah.
And I'm open for that. You know, I've mentioned probably on this show or other shows before that I'm glad I've had my growth, because I know that there was a time, because I was taught certain things, that this is how it is and this is wrong. And luckily I never had racism pushed upon me. I'm sure that there were racist things that we thought were okay, that I remember doing as a kid, because you're just like, well, this is fine. Everybody does this in movies and TV. It's fine. It's funny. Ha, ha, ha. And then you get older and you're just like, well, it's not really that funny, is it? And so I'm kind of glad that wasn't what was ingrained, but especially gay marriage and just gay people in general. I know that was one thing, and I still hear it to this day, as much as I hate that it's still there, but there's nothing you can do about it. And I'm glad that I was able to overcome that. I'm glad that I was able to just put it aside and say, how does it affect me? It doesn't. You know, why am I going to be hateful to someone who just wants to be with someone that they want to be with?
Yeah.
You know, that's what I want. That's what you want. That's what they want. So what's the problem?
Yep.
And you know, I hope more people can have that moment of growth in their time.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And if it takes an anime to make that happen, by all means,
Hey,
watch all the anime.
whatever it takes. But that's all I got on this episode. So.
Alrighty. Well, why don't you lead us out?
All right, everybody. So if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, tell your friends if they love anime that they can listen to us on their favorite podcasting platform. Whatever it may be, we should be everywhere that you listen, even on YouTube. And if you want to help support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/pencilpaperproductions. And if you want to keep up with any and all things, you can go to pencilpaperproductions.com/inspiredweeaboo. Links are in the show notes for your convenience.
All right, my little weebs. We will see you next time.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.